Arthur Conan Doyle, The Sign of the Four. Chapter 10. The End of the Islander. Our meal was very cheerful. Holmes could speak very well when he wanted, and that night he wanted to. He seemed very excited and full of energy. I have never seen him so clever and lively. He talked about many subjects quickly, about miracle plays, about medieval pottery, about Stradivarius violins, about Buddhism in Ceylon, and about warships of the future. And he spoke about each topic as if he had studied it deeply. His bright mood showed a change from his dark sadness in the previous days. Athelney Jones was friendly and relaxed, and he enjoyed his dinner like a man who loves good food. As for me, I felt happy because we were close to finishing our task, and I shared some of Holmes's good mood. None of us spoke during dinner about the reason we were together. When the table was cleared, Holmes looked at his watch and filled 3 glasses with port. "One full glass," said he, "to the success of our small expedition. And now it is time for us to go. Do you have a pistol, Watson?" "I have my old service revolver in my desk." "You should take it then. It is good to be ready. I see the cab is at the door. I ordered it for 6:30. It was a little after 7 when we reached Westminster Wharf and found our boat waiting for us. Holmes looked at it carefully. "Is there anything to show that it is a police boat?" "Yes, that green lamp at the side." "Then remove it." The small change was made, we got on board, and the ropes were released. Jones, Holmes, and I sat at the back. One man steered, one worked with the engine, and 2 strong police inspectors stood at the front. "Where to?" asked Jones. "To the tower. Tell them to stop opposite Jacobson's yard." Our boat was clearly very fast. We passed long lines of loaded barges, as if they were not moving. Holmes smiled with satisfaction when we caught up with a river steamer and left it behind. "We should be able to catch anything on the river," he said. "Well, not everything, but not many boats are faster than us. We will have to catch the Aurora, and it is known to be very fast. I will explain the situation, Watson. Do you remember how angry I was when I was stopped by such a small problem?" "Yes." "Well, I rested my mind completely by doing a chemical experiment. One of our greatest statesmen has said that a change of work is the best rest. That is true. When I managed to dissolve the hydrocarbon I was working on, I returned to the problem of the Sholtos and thought about it again from the beginning. My boys had searched up and down the river without success. The launch was not at any landing place or wharf, and it had not come back. It was also unlikely that it had been sunk to hide their tracks, although that was still a possible idea if everything else failed. I knew that this man Small had some cleverness, but I did not think he was capable of careful and detailed planning. That usually comes from higher education. I then thought that since he had clearly been in London for some time, as we had proof that he watched Pondicherry Lodge regularly, he could not leave immediately. He would need a little time, even if it was only a day, to prepare everything. That seemed most likely to me. "It seems a bit weak to me," said I. "It is more likely that he prepared everything before he began his plan." "No, I do not think so. His hiding place would be too useful for him to leave until he was sure he did not need it anymore. But then I had another idea. Jonathan Small must have known that the strange appearance of his companion, even if he tried to cover him well, would cause people to talk, and might be connected to the Norwood crime. He was clever enough to understand that. They left their base during the night, and he would want to return before it became fully light. Now, it was after 3 o'clock, according to Mrs. Smith, when they took the boat. It would be light, and people would be outside within an hour or so. So I thought they did not go very far. They paid Smith well to keep quiet, kept his launch ready for their final escape, and quickly went back to their rooms with the treasure box. After a couple of nights, when they had time to see what the newspapers said and whether anyone suspected them, they would travel at night to a ship at Gravesend or in the Downs. There, they probably already had plans to go to America or the colonies. But the launch? They could not take it to their rooms. That is true. I thought that the launch must be somewhere nearby, even though we could not see it. Then I tried to think like Small and see the situation as he would. He would probably think that sending the launch back or leaving it at a wharf would make it easy for the police to follow him if they found his trail. So how could he hide the launch but still have it ready when he needed it? I wondered what I would do in his place. I could think of only one solution. I could give the launch to a boat builder or repairer and ask him to make a small change to it. Then it would be taken to his workshop or yard and hidden well, while at the same time I could get it back within a few hours. That seems simple enough. It is exactly these simple things that are very often missed. However, I decided to follow this idea. I started at once, dressed as a sailor, and asked questions at all the yards along the river. I found nothing at 15 places, but at the 16th, Jacobson's, I learned that the Aurora had been brought there 2 days ago by a man with a wooden leg, with some small instructions about its rudder. "There is nothing wrong with the rudder," said the foreman. "There she is, with the red marks." At that moment, who should arrive but Mordecai Smith, the missing owner? He was quite drunk. I would not have recognized him, but he shouted his name and the name of his boat. "I want her tonight at 8 o'clock, he said. "Exactly at 8, remember, because I have 2 gentlemen who do not like to wait." They had clearly paid him well, because he had a lot of money and was throwing coins to the workers. I followed him for some distance, but he went into a pub, so I returned to the yard. On the way, I met one of my boys and told him to watch the launch. He will stand by the water and wave his handkerchief to us when they leave. We will be waiting on the river, and it would be very strange if we did not catch the men and the treasure as well. "You have planned everything very well, whether they are the right men or not," said Jones. "But if I were in charge, I would have placed police officers in Jacobson's yard and arrested them when they arrived. They would never come. This man Small is quite clever. He would send someone ahead, and if anything made him suspicious, he would hide for another week. But you could have followed Mordecai Smith and been led to their hiding place," said I. "In that case, I would have wasted my day. I think it is very unlikely that Smith knows where they live. As long as he has alcohol and good pay, why would he ask questions? They just send him messages about what to do. No, I considered every possible option, and this is the best one." While we were talking, we passed under the long line of bridges across the Thames. As we passed the city, the last light of the sun was shining on the cross at the top of St. Paul's. It was already getting dark when we reached the tower. "That is Jacobson's yard," said Holmes, pointing to many masts and ropes on the Surrey side. "Move slowly up and down here, hidden behind these boats." He took a pair of binoculars from his pocket and looked at the shore for some time. "I can see my watcher at his place," he said, "but there is no sign of a handkerchief." "Let us go a little down the river and wait for them there," said Jones quickly. We were all excited now, even the policemen and the engine workers, who did not clearly understand what was happening. "We must not assume anything," Holmes replied. "It is very likely that they will go down the river, but we cannot be sure. From here we can see the entrance to the yard, and they can hardly see us. The night will be clear, and there will be enough light. We must stay here. Look how many people are moving over there in the gaslight. They are coming from work in the yard. They look rough and dirty, but I suppose each of them has a small, immortal soul inside. You would not think so just by looking at them. There is no obvious reason to believe it. Man is a strange mystery. Someone calls him a soul hidden inside an animal, I said. Winwood Reade writes well about this, said Holmes. He says that while one man is impossible to understand, a group of men can be understood like mathematics. For example, you can never predict what one man will do, but you can say quite exactly what a large number of men will do. Individuals are different, but percentages stay the same. That is what statisticians say. But do I see a handkerchief? There really is something white moving over there. Yes, it is your boy, I cried. I can see him clearly. And there is the aurora, shouted Holmes, and it is moving very fast. Full speed ahead, engineer. Follow that launch with the yellow light. By heaven, I will never forgive myself if she is faster than us. She had quietly left the yard and passed behind 2 or 3 small boats, so she had already reached a high speed before we noticed her. Now she was rushing down the river, close to the shore, moving extremely fast. Jones looked at her seriously and shook his head. She is very fast, he said. I am not sure we can catch her. We must catch her, said Holmes through his teeth. Give it everything, stokers. Make the engine work as hard as possible. Even if we burn the boat, we must catch them. We were now clearly chasing her. The furnaces roared, and the strong engines made loud, fast noises, like a huge metal heart. The sharp front of our boat cut through the water and sent waves to both sides. With every movement of the engine, the boat shook and jumped like a living creature. A large yellow lantern at the front of our boat sent a long, shaking line of light ahead of us. In front of us, we could see a dark shape on the water where the aurora was, and the white foam behind it showed how fast it was moving. We passed barges, steamers, and large ships moving around them quickly. Voices called to us from the darkness, but the aurora kept racing ahead, and we stayed close behind it. More power, men! More power! Shouted Holmes, looking down into the engine room, while the strong light from below shone on his sharp and eager face. Use all the steam you can. I think we are getting closer, said Jones, watching the aurora. I am sure of it, said I. We will reach her in just a few minutes. At that moment, however, because of our bad luck, a tug pulling 3 barges suddenly came between us. We had to turn sharply to avoid crashing into them, and before we could pass them and continue, the aurora had moved about 200 yards ahead. Still, we could see her clearly, and the dark evening was changing into a clear night full of stars. Our boilers were working at their limit, and the light boat shook and creaked with the strong force pushing us forward. We had passed through the pool, gone past the West India docks, moved along the long stretch of Deptford Reach, and then turned again after passing the Isle of Dogs. The dark shape in front of us now became clear. It was the small and neat aurora. Jones turned our searchlight on it so we could clearly see the people on its deck. One man sat at the back with something black between his knees, and he was bending over it. Next to him was a dark shape that looked like a large dog. The boy was steering, while in the red light of the fire I could see old Smith, without a shirt, throwing coal into the fire as fast as he could. At first, they may not have been sure that we were chasing them, but now that we followed every turn they made, they could no longer doubt it. At Greenwich, we were about 300 steps behind them. At Blackwall, we were not more than 250. I have chased many animals in many countries during my life, but I have never felt such excitement as in this wild chase on the Thames. Slowly, we got closer to them, yard by yard. In the quiet night, we could hear the heavy breathing and the noise of their engine. The man at the back was still bent over the deck, moving his arms as if he was working on something. And from time to time, he looked up to see how far we were behind. We came closer and closer. Jones shouted to them to stop. We were only about 4 boat lengths behind them, and both boats were moving very fast. The river was open here, with Barking Level on one side and the sad Plumstead Marshes on the other. When we shouted, the man at the back jumped up and shook his fists at us, shouting angrily in a loud, rough voice. He was a strong, well-built man, and as he stood with his legs apart, I could see that his right leg ended in a wooden stump below the thigh. When he shouted, there was movement in the bundle on the deck. It rose and became a small black man, the smallest I have ever seen, with a large, strange head and messy, wild hair. Holmes had already taken out his revolver, and I quickly took out mine when I saw this wild and twisted creature. He was wrapped in a dark coat or blanket, so only his face could be seen. But that face was enough to give anyone nightmares. I have never seen a face that showed so much animal-like cruelty. His small eyes shone with a dark light, and his thick lips were pulled back from his teeth, which showed as he made angry, animal-like sounds at us. "Fire if he raises his hand," said Holmes quietly. We were now within one boat's length, and almost close enough to touch them. I can still see the two of them as they stood, the white man with his legs wide apart, shouting curses, and the strange dwarf with his terrible face, his strong yellow teeth showing in the light of our lantern. It was good that we could see him so clearly. As we watched, he took out from under his covering a short, round piece of wood, like a school ruler, and put it to his lips. Our pistols fired at the same time. He turned around, lifted his arms, and with a choking sound, fell sideways into the river. I saw one last look of his dangerous, angry eyes in the white water. At the same moment, the man with the wooden leg jumped to the rudder and turned it hard, so his boat moved straight toward the southern bank, while we rushed past the back of his boat, missing it by only a few feet. We quickly turned after him, but he was already very close to the shore. It was a wild and empty place, where the moon shone over a large area of marshland with pools of still water and rotting plants. The launch hit the mud with a heavy sound, its front raised and its back still in the water. The man tried to jump out, but his wooden leg went deep into the wet ground. He struggled hard, but he could not move at all. He shouted in anger and kicked with his other leg, but this only pushed his wooden leg deeper into the mud. When we brought our boat next to him, he was stuck so firmly that we had to throw a rope over his shoulders to pull him out and drag him onto our boat like a strange fish. The two Smiths, father and son, sat quietly in their boat, but they came aboard without trouble when we told them to. We pulled the Aurora free and tied it behind us. A heavy iron chest from India stood on the deck. There was no doubt that this was the same chest that had held the cursed treasure of the Sholtos. There was no key, but it was very heavy, so we carefully moved it into our small cabin. As we slowly moved back up the river, we shone our searchlight everywhere. But there was no sign of the islander. Somewhere in the dark mud at the bottom of the Thames lie the bones of that strange visitor to our land. "Look here," said Holmes, pointing to the wooden hatch. We were almost too late with our pistols. There, just behind where we had been standing, was one of those deadly darts which we knew so well. It must have flown past us at the exact moment we fired. Holmes smiled and shrugged his shoulders calmly. But I felt sick when I thought how close we had been to such a terrible death that night.